Right now, somewhere, you are tired. Not from running, not from fighting, from sitting in a chair for 9 hours, answering messages, waiting for the day to end. You assume this is normal? You assume your ancestors had it worse. But the real answer is far stranger. They probably worked less than you do. Today, for decades, the story you were told went like this. Cavemen lived on the edge of starvation. Every day was a desperate hunt. Every night was a fight against the cold and the dark. Life was nasty, brutish, and short, and there was no time for anything except survival. It is a vivid picture. It is also mostly wrong. In the 1960s, an anthropologist named Richard Lee decided to actually test the idea. He did not guess. He did not theorize from an armchair. He went to the Kalahari Desert and lived among the Jew/Hwansi-san, a hunter-gatherer people, and he counted their hours. How long did it take to find food? How long did it take to prepare it? How long was left over? The number stunned him. Around 15 hours a week, sometimes 20. That was the entire workload required to feed an adult in one of the harshest environments on Earth. Not 15 hours a day, 15 hours a week. You spend more time than that just commuting and answering email. Lee published his findings, and a few years later, the anthropologist Marshall Solins took the idea further. He coined a phrase that broke the standard image of prehistoric misery. He called early hunter-gatherer life the original affluent society. Not affluent because people had stuff. Affluent because people had time. Their wants were few, the environment provided what they needed, and the gap between desire and supply was small. That gap, Solins argued, is the actual definition of wealth. Not how much you have. How little distance there is between what you want and what you've got. Sit with that for a second. Wealth was never about abundance, it was about the size of the gap. So what did your ancestors actually do with all that spare time? Here's where it gets even stranger. They didn't fill it with anxious busy work. They rested. They socialized. They told stories around the fire for hours, not to pass time, but because storytelling was social glue, education, and entertainment fused into one. They napped during the heat of the day. They groomed each other, played with children, settled disputes, made jewelry out of ostrich shell beads for absolutely no practical reason at all. Decoration for its own sake. Beauty with no function. That should sound familiar. You still do that. You just call it fashion now. The anthropologist James Sussman, who spent years living with and studying the Jew/Hwansi decades after Lee's original research, found the same pattern holding up. Even with the modern world pressing in around them, the rhythm of work followed short, intense bursts, rather than the long, continuous grind you consider normal. Hunt hard for a day or two. Rest for several. Repeat. There was no concept of a 40-hour week because there was no reason to invent one. The environment did not demand it. Why then do you grind for 40, 50, 60 hours in a body and brain built for 15? The honest answer involves agriculture, and it is not the heroic turning point you were taught in school. When humans began farming around 10,000 years ago, something went wrong before it went right. Crops demanded constant attention. Planting, weeding, guarding, harvesting, storing. Skeletal remains from early farming communities show more signs of malnutrition, more disease, more physical strain than the hunter-gatherer skeletons that came before them. The archaeologist often credited with naming this shift, Jared Diamond, called agriculture the worst mistake in the history of the human race. A provocative line, but the bones back it up. Farming did not buy humanity leisure. It bought humanity surplus, and surplus bought hierarchy. Once food could be stored, it could also be hoarded, taxed, and controlled. Some people stopped working the land and started managing the people who did. Kings, priests, bureaucrats, bosses. The 15-hour week didn't evolve into your 40-hour week through progress. It was buried under a system that required most people to produce more than they needed so that a few people could take the difference. Here's the part that should genuinely unsettle you. Your body has not caught up. Your stress hormones, your sleep cycles, your appetite, your craving for movement and novelty and rest, all of it was shaped across a few million years of a leisure-punctuated existence.